share
Your screen.
this screen. Okay. All right. Dave Williams and Chief Phil Lukens back with a how-to video around agents in Copilot, and today we'll be focusing on researcher and a process around getting a study, creating a distilled version of that into key points and a presentation, and I'll let Chief set up the details of that and why it's important and how it could be used in small agencies. So Chief, over to you.
Sure. Yeah, I think we know that 40%, something like that, of police departments have 9 or less officers. And that means out of 18,000, we're talking, several thousand agencies don't have a lot of officers. So oftentimes the chief is the one that's handling a lot. Maybe they have one assistant, but you will find yourself in a situation where you get a last minute phone call that says, hey, tonight at the city council meeting, I need you to address X on body cams, or I need you to address something on use of force. And what happens is these smaller entities and even mid-sized agencies are, and they're still deemed small, but agencies that have 30 or 40 or 50 officers, all of a sudden you find yourself scrambling to try and get information in time. And what happens is the governing authorities, your city council officials or whatever, all of a sudden will vote against budgets on items that are very, very important that you may have thought were going to be passed or go through. And the problem is because there's no proof and there's no evidence, and we want to know some reports and we want to know studies. And oftentimes agencies will end up saying things like, well, this is what the neighboring agency does. And that sometimes isn't good enough for council, and they want to see more information. And this really gives you the opportunity to compile a report, get your research done in just a matter of a few minutes, and put that together in a presentation, and be prepared for those meetings so you can walk in there and with confidence that you have information and true proof to back up what your assertions are with use of force or with a taser or anything else. So that way you can still maintain your funding or get the items that you're proposing in your budget.
Awesome. Thanks, Chief. That was really crystal clear, and I always appreciate your expertise and experience in this area. So I'll take us through kind of the series of prompts that I went through, and there's certainly ways to automate this in kind of a production environment. I did some cutting and pasting, a little bit of a manual process, but it gets you there, right? And I was telling Chief, the total runtime of this took me about 30 minutes. So 30 minutes from that inquiry that you need to prepare for to having a presentation. Now you probably need a little more time to clean the presentation up and get it in the right format and make sure you're very comfortable with it. But it's sure a lot easier to edit something that exists than it is to start from scratch and create it completely on your own. So with that, let me pop up a PowerPoint to show you what I ran as a prompt. So I started out in Copilot, and one of the new agents that was released recently that's available with everybody with the Copilot license is Researcher, and Researcher, just what it sounds like, right? It does deep research. So we started out, is body-worn camera effective in reducing use of force in police departments in the U.S. that have 10 officers or less, and we use authoritative references and sources, etc. So from that, let me go to my conversations because I've already ran this. So I actually renamed it and saved it, which is an interesting topic for another time, but I'm just going to click on this and it will rerun what I previously executed. So here's the interesting thing, I think, about the way Researcher works. So I put that in. I thought, oh, that's a pretty good prompt. And then it came back and asked me for some additional clarifying information about, did I have certain studies I wanted to look at, or did I want just a summary, etc. Right? So it's asking you for additional detail. I did one of these on another topic the other day where I condensed it by saying I only wanted it in a certain period of time, which of course limits the research, which is useful. So then I go through that. I say, no, I just want a summary of it or my briefing for city council, and away it goes, right? And this took about 10 minutes. And you can see as I scroll through here, I'll stop and show each one
So
of
when he
these.
says, oh,
I'm sorry,
sorry,
go ahead.
when Dave says that it takes 10 minutes, that means it's just sitting there thinking and compiling. So the wheel's just spinning. Don't think your computer crashed. It's just thinking and working on it. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, you're right. And it's really good about it actually has this little icon that's kind of flashing the whole time so you know that it's continuing to work and you don't get frustrated. So 10 minutes seems like a lifetime waiting, but it's it's a lot faster than the old-fashioned way. So all of these numbers at the ends of the sentence and stuff are all references and they'll be compiled at the bottom. And I'll just kind of scroll down through this so you don't just see me blow through it real quick. But it's referencing all kinds of studies and it's giving you percentages and it's talking about the behavior and the impact on the force and what various studies show, which is the kind of information that you want, right? You don't want to walk in and give a briefing based on your opinion. You want to have some data to back it up. And it even talks about cost, right? It goes more in depth than even what my question was, but it understands contextually that I need to provide a briefing to justify a budget at an event, and it needs to provide me more details around that kind of a justification. And it even gives me the challenges that sometimes the challenges on this particular body-worn camera can be expense. As Chief knows, I know from a previous role that he had been in, and then it actually provides you a conclusion, which kind of says, hey, this is promising, it actually makes a difference. And then as I get here, I'll show you, it also has all of the references and you can look through and determine the veracity of each one of those references on your own. But everything from universities to Department of Justice to large agencies like California and others that have that studies are contributed to this research. So
And I
now I
think,
have. Oh, go ahead, please.
so the one thing I just want to say is those days of calling your buddy and trying to find out who has the last research or paper or something like that, you spooling the IACP website or a lot of things where you're trying to gather this information and then review it and then write something on it is now done for you. This just is a huge lift. Sorry, go ahead.
No, thank you. That's, I mean, you need to put it in context, and I appreciate that you're doing that. So advance, let me see, oh, sorry, advance one. Okay, so now I took that study that came up and I copied all of that data and then I pasted it into a Word document and I saved it. And then I went to the standard Copilot interface, and there's the work tab and the web tab. You've seen us talk about that in previous videos. And I went to the work tab because now I've saved this document internal to my OneDrive or SharePoint or wherever it is that you're filing and saving your data. So I've saved it to OneDrive, and now I want to use it as a reference to summarize that 15-20 page study into key bullet points for the purposes of eventually building a presentation to present at this city council meeting. So escape back out of that. Go over here to chat. Look at my previous conversations. Sorry, I need to go to the work tab. It actually stores them separately. So I look for my body-worn camera. I can go through and cut all this out because it was a couple of days ago when I ran this. I just had this in here and was paying attention to it.
No, I think the thing that's going to be coming, the magic that happens next, to be able to use this data to generate your PowerPoint and use this data to get other information is everything. When you're asked what you're going to do, you now are prepared. And it's very hard to sometimes walk into, I've just talked to too many colleagues that walk into a city council meeting and all of a sudden get told we're not buying your body cams, or we're not paying for upgrades, or we're not paying for this part of it. And it's all because they didn't have time to get information together. And something that we think is a no-brainer in the police world, where it's just an industry standard or pretty much accepted practice. And suddenly somebody questions that practice, and now you're trying to find proof on, well, here's the proof. It's kind of like, when your kids ask you a very obvious question and they're like, but why? But why? And you're like, and all of a sudden you find yourself having to, search the web and figure out what the answer is because it's just accepted practice. So anyway, go ahead. This is good.
Yeah, so again, I ran the prompt that I showed previously. It took that large research document and compiled it into these kind of 7 buckets. And then the next step is back to the PowerPoint here. Just put it back in slideshow mode. Is to go to Copilot in PowerPoint and provide this summarized document as a reference and have it kick out a PowerPoint presentation. And it's fairly quick to do that. And then you have that information that you can take and start cleaning up. So now let me go over and open up the PowerPoint presentation that I
This is the magic,
previously put
really,
together. Yeah,
because
it really is.
you have the report, and now it's like, yeah, but I still have to do the presentation on it. But now you can throw that report into Copilot and PowerPoint, and it's going to generate your slides for you. It's going to make it pretty general. Now you can throw in other stuff, and some of that other, items are quick, easy. Throw in your badge, logo, whatever you need to do, utilizing your style guide or whatever it is. But the content itself, getting that takes a lot. And now you're educated. And even though you know this information more than likely, now you can cite sources. Now you can cite information. And now you have a really good presentation to turn around and look at your city council and say, this is what it is. I've done my homework. I've done my research. And more times than not, when agencies are able to provide this information at the city council and educate them on the topic, they typically gain favor on whatever type of ruling that they need. And so this really, really makes this a lot better for you to be able to get that. And now this is done in seconds. So you think of this entire project taking 30 minutes or so. Maybe you're going to clean up these slides and change a few things. But at the end of the day, you now have everything that you need in such a short amount of time that you can get that 1 hour notice, meet the deadline, still go into the council meeting with confidence and really give a great presentation. People say, okay, I understand it. And where they may have thought that they weren't going to support something, they turn around and support it because they now are educated on it.
Yeah, not only that, Chief, but one of the things I liked as I was looking through this and how it broke it all down is it likely helps you anticipate questions and have information that you may have not been ready for because the study's a little more thorough, about, well, how are you going to implement it? Did you think about that? What about training? What about when it's, requested under FOIA or something like that? And you now have that kind of as a prompt in the preparation of this briefing to be prepared for those questions that may come during your presentation to City Council. So, and then wraps it up with a conclusion. But I will escape out of this presentation now and just go back to the meeting. But if there's anything else, Chief, that you wanna talk about or talk through on this, I mean, literally 30 minutes. I need to know some information. I need you to distill it down into something that'll support the presentation, create a presentation. And now, of course, you see it uses a lot of stock images and photos, and you can go through there, as Chief said, and use your style guide, change pictures to be a more appropriate, reduce the length of the presentation to whatever time allotment that you have. But I think it's a lot easier to go from something that took 30 minutes and then edit than it is to start from scratch. From the study that you may never even complete, let alone get a presentation ready to go that makes a lot of sense. So anything else, Chief?
No, I think that is the valuable thing. The goal is to have a lighter lift and be able to handle what you need to be able to handle with the resources that you have, recognizing that when you're a smaller agency, you just don't have as many resources as you need. And so sometimes you can't delegate and you can't take the hit because it's going to dramatically impact the police department one way or another. And so this gives you that opportunity to really get something out, get it in front of people, and really make those last minute conversations a lot easier. And, in many cases, a person might spend a day up to a week trying to prepare for something like this. And now you're able to do it in a half hour to an hour, and you're set, knowing that next week you'll probably never look at it again. And that's one of the frustrating factors of it. And that's why police have all these files, and you save hundreds of files that you go like, I'm going to use that again someday. And I think one of the greatest things we're going to see with AI is that it's not going to be necessary to save these types of presentations, because you can make a new one faster and you can find the old one. So
True.
anyway.
True. All right. Well, thank you.